Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Quixotic topic. As always, I'm Daquan, and I'm joined by Apple.
And wisdom.
And today we'll be talking about dreams and whether or not they are important. And so this is a really interesting topic. And so, Wisdom, we'll start out with you. What do you think about dreams?
Um, that's a good question. Honestly, I'm not sure what dreams are. I've been thinking a lot about it lately, and I know Michael and I have discussed it recently. And we have different opinions as to whether we believe dreams are real or if they reflect things that have happened, earlier in the day or something that's happened in your life
Okay.
and the significance of them. And so personally, I feel like dreams are important and they do reflect something. Um, yeah, this is the general
All right,
opinion.
cool. Michael, what about you? How do you think about it?
I would say growing up, I always thought that dreams had significance. I always thought that they were maybe like they could tell the future in some sense. But as I've gotten older, I've been introduced to more theories, and just I've been exposed to different ways of thinking about dreams. So now I'm starting to think that maybe dreams don't have as much weight in a person's life as I thought they did.
Okay.
Maybe they're just like Wisdom mentioned before, something like a reflection of what happened that day, or maybe like just what you want, like what your deepest desires are.
Yeah, like
So-
just your subconscious kind of going through the motions
Yeah.
while you're unconscious.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that I'm probably somewhere in the middle myself because I don't have dreams. That is to say, like, I do have dreams because scientifically speaking, everyone does. I never recollect them. But when I go to sleep, it's just a period of me not knowing. Literally, it's just a period of me being unconscious, and then I'm awake again. But the dreams that I do have, which are extremely rare, do happen to be fairly prophetic in a sense, in the same way that you can kind of take meaning out of a painting or a piece of music. I tend to interpret dreams a specific way and then see like that happen in real life. But it is interesting to think that that is probably a self-fulfilling prophecy in a sense, in the fact that like if I see or if I see something in a dream and think about it really hard, it'll be kind of hard for me to not see it in real life. And so, Michael, I want to ask you: have you had like any of those types of dreams that were like extremely prophetic word, in the sense that you dreamt it and then it came true?
Okay, so when I was about in fourth grade, I had a dream that I was playing on the same football team as two of my best friends at that time. And then I played on that same football team with them in real life. So I was like, wow, it must be some sort of prophet or something. But I would say recently I haven't really had those sort of dreams, but I definitely have had experiences that have happened in my dreams. And I've like remembered those dreams, and I've asked myself, I wonder will this happen, or will it just be, I don't know, will it just
Like, will it ever
manifest
come up
something?
again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, it definitely has happened to me before. So that was one of the reasons why I seem to think that dreams carry more weight than
Okay.
probably.
And so, was that just one example? Have you had like multiple instances of that happening?
I feel like I remember having that happening multiple times, but I can't really recall it. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right, Wisdom, what about you? Have you had dreams that have foretold things?
Yes. Unfortunately, I cannot remember a specific example,
Mhm.
but ever since I can remember, like, even back to maybe even elementary school, but definitely at least middle school, I would be doing something during the day and I just have a sense of deja vu and I'm like, whoa, maybe this has happened before or I remember dreaming this and
Mhm.
here it is in real life and it just feels odd.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I still have it happen. Not as frequent, but I do get these feelings of, oh, I've definitely like experienced this.
Mhm.
Was it in a dream? Am I hallucinating, crazy? Not sure.
There's been a lot of practice and like study put into dreams recently. Especially, I want to bring up the concept of lucid dreaming, which is for those of you who don't know, it's when you're awake while you're asleep. to quote the Firefly song, but it's essentially you become aware that you are dreaming, and that allows you to have full autonomy in the dream, and you're able to do whatever you wish in it. I myself have never like been lucid, but a lot of people, I believe, say that lucid dreaming is kind of, they look at it very, in a sense of, has a comical perspective, in the sense of like it is a sense of entertainment. A lot of people look to dreams as being stuff that gives us joy in a sense, but there have also been times where people would go lucid in the middle of a nightmare. And so when we talk about dreams, it's kind of hard to not include nightmares. And so now I want to ask you like what your perspective on that is, in the sense that we kind of, as a society, focus a lot on like what dreams can do for us, but what about nightmares or night terrors? I believe those are two separate things, but I digress.
Okay, so I think with nightmares, I've stopped having them, or maybe I've not stopped having them, but I think my nightmares quickly change because you mentioned lucid dreams, and I feel like when I have nightmares or when I feel like it's coming on, because I have like some sort of intuition in my dreams because I know it's gonna happen. I stop what I'm doing in my dream. I don't think I really recognize that it's a nightmare, but I can sort of change the outcome of my dream so that I won't be experiencing fear or pain, and I can change and I usually have the ability to change what's happening. So
you're able to be lucid?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think nightmares are a deep reflection of what you are truly afraid of, or even what I don't know. Sometimes I have nightmares that kind of reflect what I want. It's really interesting, I think, because like usually nightmares are usually my nightmares are pretty scary, and it's someone coming after me. But there's other times where they're like, I don't get exactly what I want, or I do get exactly what I want, but then there's a greater consequence that comes with it. So it's
like a genie in the bottle kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like you get the wish, but it's not how you wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So and define nightmare.
I would assume the like ubiquitous definition of a nightmare is a dream that is unpleasant, right? I think that would be like the most basic kind of line into a nightmare, because of course there's a subjective like what exactly does one find unpleasant. Well, there are like a couple of like basic things like death, terror, being in school. I think there's a lot of general things that people pick out when it comes to unpleasancy. Is that a word? I'm gonna assume it is. And that kind of factors into nightmares. I think that it's very much defined by what you find as like revolting or something that you wouldn't want to experience in real life, and that's why you're not. I think that dreams and nightmares kind of give us a field to simulate reality, because in a sense that's what it is. It's your memories kind of convulging and conversing and putting themselves out in different ways. And that allows us to kind of examine scenarios that likely wouldn't happen but could, in a way. And so before we digress, Wisdom, I want to ask on your opinion on nightmares and how they have benefited or not benefited you in your past.
Yeah, so I feel like nightmares have such a negative connotation in society, which, like, in a sense they do, especially, like, when I was younger and I didn't understand, like, why am I having these nightmares? Why am I waking up scared, running to my parents' room, sleeping with them to feel secure? But honestly, as I've gotten older, I have learned to appreciate nightmares, and I say that because, like, most of my nightmares, or at least the ones that I can remember, it's just either like a massacre or death. Like the two nightmares that I will never forget that I had years ago were when my mom and I drove off of a cliff and died, and when this big snake, like bigger than you can imagine, just came into my house and ate my family one by one. And I survived by jumping like 2 stories down to the ground or something.
Wow.
And so by having those dreams, it's like they were eye openers to me, and it made me realize that sometimes I don't appreciate the people that I have in my life,
Mhm.
and I like get teary eyed and upset that like you never know when you can lose someone, especially like my parents because they do so much for me, and just realizing that like they can die any second. It was like an eye opener to me,
Yeah,
and
just
just made
being,
me appreciate them more
yeah.
and get upset to know that like sometimes I disappoint them and upset them. And so I've definitely learned to appreciate nightmares for what they are because um, they definitely help me realize things. But also, like,
They allow you to do like that introspection in a
yeah,
sense. It allows you to like see things about yourself.
yeah. But also, I get confused when I have nightmares. Like, what does this mean? Like, why am I having such dreams where people are dying or just dreams in general that are negative? Like, what correlation does this have to my life?
Right. And from there, I think I want to go into the topic of interpreting dreams. There's a lot of websites and documents and journals and books of like, if you see this in your dream, it means that, like, if X, then Y kind of things. It's been very commercialized, I would say, the interpretation of dreams to the point that it's kind of a business. How do you feel dreams should be interpreted? Or how do you feel about the kind of scene when it comes to interpreting dreams, like the things that go around it. And in round robin style, I'm going to go to Michael first.
So your question was, how do I feel they should be interpreted?
How do you feel? How do you feel about like the interpretation of dreams? Like if you were to tell your dream to someone and they like start telling you stuff about it, like how much credit would you give them? Because like they didn't technically see it, so
Yeah, I've actually talked to people about my dreams before, and they've told me things. And usually, I think whenever dreams are interpreted, people base meaning off of like what they feel that like maybe their dream would mean, or if they were having a dream what that would mean for them. So I feel like a lot of the times it's not really they can't really say what you feel or what you want or what you need or what you think. So I don't think it's always it like asking another person is not always liable. And you mentioned the websites. I've gone to websites about my dreams, like because for a long time, this past year, or I'm sorry, over the past few months, I was having dreams where my teeth were falling out. So I was looking it up, and it was telling me maybe I was fearing a loss of someone or something, or maybe I was paranoid about something. And so I think those can sometimes be helpful because they can give you an idea, but they don't always, because they don't cater to the individual, they don't always, they're not always accurate. So I feel like a dream that's interpreted should usually, I feel like you should do self-interpretation. Unless
Yeah.
there's someone who knows you so well that they can tell you what you're feeling and what you're thinking
Mhm.
and why you've had that dream, I think that should be left up to you. So
Okay, cool. I concur. Wisdom.
Yeah, Michael basically said what I was thinking. And so I think you shouldn't really rely on how people interpret your dreams because no one knows you more than yourself.
Mhm.
So how can someone tell you what
Right.
you're thinking or what something means in your life? Because also like people interpret things differently.
Right.
So when it comes to like other people interpreting your dreams, I wouldn't rely on that. And ultimately, like understanding your dreams is up to you and what you think it means in your life. But also, personally, even though I value dreams or I feel like dreams have some significance in what's going on in your life,
Mhm.
I don't think you should rely too heavily on your dreams because, like, you don't know what you're thinking. I don't think you know what you're thinking in your
Okay.
dreams. Like, it's just your subconscious.
Yeah.
It's subconscious. But
I mean, like technically, this is all just metacognition.
yeah. Yeah, so you shouldn't like rely heavily or base your whole life on what you're dreaming. But I do feel like dreams show something or like they're signs of things. So
So it's kind of accurate, but not very accurate.
yeah, but it's ultimately up to your own interpretations. Of
Has
what your
there?
dreams are.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Fine.
But has there ever been a moment in which you interpreted the dream wrong, in a sense? And do you think that's possible?
I don't, you can go ahead. I don't necessarily interpret my dreams,
Mhm.
but It's hard to really say if it can be wrong or not
Yeah,
because
or
like
rather, like, has interpreting dream kind of led you astray or down a path that you wouldn't necessarily want to go down?
oh definitely
Okay.
yeah
Would you mind telling us more about that? Wisdom, you seem to.
you can do it.
Okay.
I definitely feel like sometimes when I'm dreaming of things that are like so unrealistic or things that could never happen in my life that like it's a realistic situation, but I don't believe in myself or just believe in my situations that I would come across such instances like that.
Like, it's a bit too real.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, recently I had a dream that I got into Stanford, and not saying that that's not possible, but like my chances are really unlikely. So I'm just questioning why it's happening. Why
Right.
am I giving myself this kind of false hope? But
There are dreams that I feel like I have that don't really like and I interpret these dreams as these are my true desires, but they really aren't. Like they really make me upset if they are my true desires because that's not what I really want. And when I wake up from them, I'm relieved because
It's like, that's not what's happening.
yeah. So because like I don't know, there were sometimes I remember a lot of times when I was younger, I have dreams where I was getting disciplined by my teachers in school, and and like quick side note, like I would always get in a lot of trouble at home whenever I would get disciplined by my teachers at school. So having that in my dream would be so terrifying because how would my mom and dad react to it, and how would my sisters would they make fun of me because I got in trouble like I always do. So yeah, having dreams that, or interpreting dreams as my deepest feelings is not really, it's not really pleasant because it's obviously it's not always true, but like it can be scary because you don't want to face the reality.
Yeah.
and also I think I forgot to mention. So I'm Christian.
Okay.
And so I believe in God. And I do recall, especially when I was a few years back, when I was questioning my religion, what I believed, where I would have these dreams, and then like in real life, the opposite would happen, and I'd just be like, why, like God, why would you do this to me, or why would you make me think that this is what was going to happen in my life, and then the complete opposite happened. And so I think because of those instances, that I guess helped me develop the thought of me, or helped me develop the idea that like dreams do have significance, but not necessarily a lot of significance, or like you shouldn't take them, I guess, for how you take them with a grain of salt. And so I think, yeah, those dreams definitely, made me stop believing that all dreams come true.
Right. Yeah. And like, that's kind of the conclusion that I think we all, as growing up, eventually have to make. Metaphorically and literally, all dreams don't necessarily come true. Interestingly enough, I said before earlier in the podcast that I don't remember my dreams, or like my sleep is pretty much a null state in which there's nothing really much to recover. I wake up and it's like, okay, I'm up now. But I do have conversations with people who do dream like we're doing right now. My grandmother, I remember she told me this. I was about 13, being a dumb teenager at my grandmother's house, doing nothing important. And she was like, I had saw a sign in my dream, and she consulted, because she's very pious, a very Christian woman. She consulted her pastor, and she was like, that might be a sign of death. And then someone in the family died. And so that kind of made me think about like, well, why am I not having dreams in a sense? Because like, I haven't necessarily looked much into it, but what does it mean to not dream? And of course, like, not, this is going off the context of like not dreaming just means you don't recover your dreams, not that you actually are unable to dream, because I don't have like aphantasia or anything like that. But aphantasia is not being able to imagine things in your mind, like not being able to, if someone says apple, not being able to picture an apple. So I've always wondered, like, what would it necessarily mean to not dream? I wanted to know, like, your guys' perspective on that.
feel like if you're not dreaming, then maybe you have a clear conscience. I'm not exactly sure if that's possible, but I feel like it's the only reason to, well, not the only reason, but it's a good reason to explain because there are some nights where I don't have dreams. And maybe it's just that my conscience is clear and I don't really have anything that I'm conflicted about, or my imagination is just not functioning. I'm not even sure. But yeah, there are some nights where I really don't have dreams or I don't remember them. But I think if you're not dreaming, then your conscience is clear, or your imagination could be not necessarily lacking, but like just not,
Just not there.
yeah, not functioning at the moment. So I don't know. Maybe you just don't want. There are some times where I could make up in my mind I don't want to have a dream, but I really have a dream. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting kind of like mini stuff that you can do while you're awake that can affect yourself, like in your dreams. Like I have heard, this might be an old wives' tale, but like eating bananas before you fall asleep can help you to have like more vivid and vivacious dreams, which kind of makes sense because I'm guessing like the potassium will cause a chemical imbalance, which would allow for different chemical reactions to happen as opposed to other ones. But like that's the me like thinking scientifically. That's the best way I can justify it. But other than that, I don't think there's any like mystical power in bananas that will allow you to
Yeah.
like allow you to picture your the deepest desires.
I've definitely heard that food and dreams have a positive correlation.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure about like you said, bananas, but
Yeah, definitely. I think that like the culture kind of surrounding dreams, it's interesting like already because it's like there's so much surrounding what we do when we aren't awake. In fact, I believe, don't quote me on this, but we spend about a third of our lives asleep, and so of course like that's a lot of kind of untapped potential because like well, there's a lot to be done there. Like, in fact, I've had a lot of, not a lot of people, but a good few amount of people say to me, like, wow, it would have been better for them to not be able to sleep or rather not need sleep because then they could get so much like work done. But at a fundamental level, sleep is important because it allows us to recuperate from day-to-day life. It helps us heal our wounds and help us kind of compile. And so you asked me earlier what my definition of a nightmare was. And so I'm going to ask the both of you, probably should have started out the podcast like this, but what is your two individual definitions of a dream?
That's a great question. I would say my definition of a dream is just a conjuring up of your conscience while you're sleeping. I mean,
Okay, yeah, that works. A definition is a definition is a definition.
So I guess like your your mind's way of expressing itself when you're not awake.
Okay.
I guess I guess I don't have a solid definition of a dream, but if anything, maybe a thought or a vision or reflection of something that's been lingering in your mind that you think about subconsciously.
Okay. And so going back to the fact that like I don't dream, again in air quotes, I'm wondering if that's just because of the fact that I tend to like already have a dialogue of introspection and looking into myself while I'm awake. And so in that sense there's not any interlated desires to really come out while I'm asleep if I'm already like cognizant of them and practicing them. I think that when it comes to dreaming, one thing that's also interesting to note is the different ways that people dream. Because the few dreams that I can remember are like extraordinarily abstract. And I also wouldn't say this is like an age thing because it was happening when I was younger and it happens when I was older too, from like age 6 to 16 at least, I would always dream extremely abstractly. Like when I do dream, I always remember like large open spaces and like just random geometric shapes kind of floating around in space with no real rhyme or reason to them. And then like this scene would just shift or like change to something else. It's very surreal, in the most genuine sense of the word. And so what I want to ask you guys is how exactly do you guys dream? Is it a bit more realistic and grounded, or does it lend itself more to the kind of just odd, I guess would be the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that or asked that because before we came here, I was actually thinking about the different kinds of dreams that I do have. And I have a wide range of dreams from things that are super unrealistic to things that are like realistic and that could actually happen in life.
Mhm.
And honestly, I couldn't say myself what I think, like by having a different sort of dream that night means to your life, I
Mhm.
guess, or like my life. But I definitely do have different dreams. Yeah.
My dreams kind of all have a structure. So I would say there's maybe like 3 or 4 types of dreams that I have. There's usually very realistic dreams that, and in which in these dreams, I don't really get what I want. And then there's a dream and then like you said, there's like just a shift. There's always some sort of connection
Mhm.
between my first dream and my next dream. So after that dream, maybe there will be like a realistic dream where I'm doing something to help save something, or I'm tasked with solving a problem that saves someone or something. So that's another type of dream I have. And then I have more realistic dreams, but they're like insanity.
Oh,
Like
that's an
Like-
interesting word to choose.
last night, okay. I had a dream where I was on top of a mountain and I was at some sort of water park or something.
Okay.
So on this mountain was a giant slide. And so on this slide, and it was like in the Arctic or something, it was freezing cold.
Mm.
So participants in this dream would go down the giant slide, slide up a ramp, and then into a giant ocean. And they would and they would just like, I guess, belly flop into the ocean, sink, and then a giant like blue whale would go and rescue them. So
Rescue
I don't,
them.
yeah. So I don't know exactly what it was about, but it like that's and the Parks and Rec cast was also like
Oh,
doing it with
Okay.
me. So I was watching Parks and Rec that night, so I guess that's why. But just very, very, very odd dreams that are like just like it's realistic. Like I can see myself doing it, but it's like really insane. Like that would never happen. So, and I guess that those are the contradictions, but that's just how it feels.
would you say that the dreams that you have or that tended to be a bit more odd have the same amount of merit as dreams that are a bit more realistic in terms of going back to interpreting? Do you think that you would be able to like find the same kind of purpose for a dream that includes blue whales in the Parks and Recs cast, as opposed to a dream where you are just you and being disappointed in your teachers? Do you think there's some sort of correlation when it comes to pulling stuff from that? Do you think that you would be able to do the same in both kinds of dreams, or no?
I feel like you could interpret both unrealistic and realistic dreams and relate somehow to your life.
Okay.
But I know, unfortunately for me, I forget my dream before I can even get to that point. And also, I don't think I know I have a creative mind, but I don't think I can think enough outside the box to figure out how these unrealistic dreams can relate to my life.
Okay, so like your subconscious mind is just like is creative, but just like 10 times more. It's on like a whole nother level because it doesn't have limits of being awake and having to care about upkeep.
Yeah, I
Okay.
just don't understand how.
Michael, you pointed out participants in dreams. This is another thing that I want to touch on. Is in the few scant dreams that I have had, um, very rarely will there be someone in that dream that like I know personally. Not like I'll wake up, and it's a very odd kind of phenomenon when there's someone else that you know that isn't like your mom or dad, for example, that's in your dream. Because like, how exactly do you approach them about that? Because it's like, hey, yeah, I dreamt about you last night. It's like, okay, that's a bit weird. So has there been any times in which you dreamt about someone and like had to bring it up and wanted to at least bring it up to them in conversation? How did you go about that?
Um, uh, so I talk about how I had a few different types of dreams. So in the more realistic ones, there are the ones that reveal a disappoint or give me disappointment. I definitely have people in those dreams that I know.
Mhm.
Like wisdom is always in my dreams.
Oh,
So I don't necessarily like, hey, you were in my dream yesterday, so deal with it. I don't know how else to. I usually just
you're gonna have
if
to
I talk to
reconcile
someone,
with this now.
if I talk to someone about my dream and they were in that dream, then I usually just tell them and we just we have a laugh about it, and then we continue to go about our day, I guess.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so I most definitely have a lot of people in my dreams, and most of which, or almost all of them, I know the people in them. And so, like with my family, I don't tell them my dreams because usually when they're in it, it's another they're bad.
Oh my.
So, yeah, but when it comes to like Michael, for example, if I do have a dream and he's in it and I remember it, I'll like text it to him. And I think that's become like a common thing that we do. We just text each other like when we wake up in the morning and say what our dream was if they're in it, or just dream in general.
Yeah, that's.
And again,
Oh no, that was just making ad lib go on.
oh, okay. And then like for other dreams that are like good or like weird, sometimes I'll message the person, or if I see them in person, I'll be like, "Hey, you were in my dream last night, and you were doing this, that, and the other," and just be like, "Oh, cool, interesting. Okay."
It's
Like,
it's very like kind of one and done kind of thing. It's not
Yeah.
something that you really dwell on.
yeah, I don't. Yeah.
And so you two dream about each other, which is very romantic. Do you think that that is because of the bond that you formed, in a sense, or is that in itself kind of prophetic? Prophetic? Still don't know if that's a word.
yeah, that's right. That's perfect.
Prophetic. Do you think that it was prophetic in the sense like I'm a divine power, like God, for example, was like, I'm going to put you two together, so you're going to be in each other's dreams now. Do you think,
Okay, sorry.
do you think that that has any kind of sway in terms of how your relationship has progressed, or?
I wouldn't necessarily say so. I have, I feel like most of my dreams now are more what I desire and very abstract. So, I think that when wisdom is in my dreams, I think it's more of just a culmination of how I feel about it. I guess it's just like, I remember not really having a lot of dreams about her before I met her, but I guess now that she's in my life, like I'm thinking about her all the time, and I worry about how she feels and everything. So because she's more significant now, she's more significant in my subconscious, I guess. So that's how. So I feel like it does have a correlation between our relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think the people that are in my dreams, they definitely have an impact in my life. Or if I'm thinking about them subconsciously, then obviously I think about them during the day, or I have thought about them during the day.
Mhm.
And so, especially with like Michael, I spend most of my time with him, and because of that, that is just allows. Well, I feel like let me go off to the stuff for a second. I feel
That's
like
fine.
dreams also reflect like things that have happened in your day or like just in recent times. And because I spend a lot of my time with him, I have a lot of events or thoughts that like, center around him or relate to him or he was there. And so I feel like that's why he's probably in my dreams so much. And so yeah, I definitely think that like the people that are in my dreams have some sort of significance to my life.
I think that would be a interesting experiment to conduct if we got like a aggregate of couples from different strides of life and to see like do they dream about each other, yay or nay. And then like also run the evaluation of their relationship in terms of like, well, how does different relationships, how are they amplified by those dreams? I think this again steps back to the interpretation of dreams in a bit, in the sense that like it really is what you pull from it is what you get. Like I think we're all in kind of a consensus that dreams are a bit more fantastical as opposed to kind of set in stone, in the sense that like they're just a thing that happened. They're a phenomenon that occur to us, and there's not too much to pull from it. There might be like coincidences here and there, but that's mainly because of the fact of it is a repropagation and amalgamation of various memories that we have. I think yeah, we can all agree on that. And so I guess that it makes a lot of sense that you two being so close would be in each other's dreams. And so that's why I would think that that would also be the case for other couples as well. And so in the comments, please, if you and a loved one are very close to each other and you dream about each other, let us know. Before we end the podcast, I want to go back to the topic of nightmares. I want to describe the one nightmare that I can remember and see if we can pull anything from it. It was back when I was in first grade, I want to say. I was around like 7 or 8 years old. I'm not sure if those numbers check out. I don't really care. And I was sat in bed and I was laying down. I was asleep, dreaming. And it started out with me in my backyard, and I was playing with like some round object that wasn't like a sports ball, but it was just a round something to play with, a toy in a sense. And then all of a sudden, just randomly, like a white kind of bulbous glob goop monster like was in my garage. But of course, like I didn't know that because I was in my backyard. It was kind of like in a movie, if like cuts to like the main villain like plotting, pretty much that's what the blob was doing. And so then eventually it just started like encompassing like my entire house. And then of course my dream shifted and now I'm inside the house and like I'm surrounded by the blob, and for some reason I had like a spiral staircase. And so I was running up the spiral staircase, and then it just kept going. It was like infinity, kind of like a stairway to heaven, literally, but like it just kept going. Heaven's pretty far away from here. But then eventually, and this is the weirdest part, there was, back when I was around like 7, there was this show I used to watch. It was called like Super Hyper Team Monkey Force Go. It was like a ripoff of Power Rangers. I don't think anyone would. I look back at it. It ran for like 2 years in like 2002 to 2004, pretty much. It's a super ancient animated cartoon show. And it was a ripoff of Power Rangers, but it was just with monkeys, and it was like animated. And so like the main characters from that like jumped down and started like fighting the blob. And so then I joined them, and then eventually that kind of like failed. And then we all got ate by the blob, and then I woke up. I woke up with a cold sweat. I remember this most vividly. I woke up in a cold sweat, and like I screamed, top of my lungs. And my mom like barreled down the door because she thought I was like dying or something. And I was like, "Oh no, I just had a bad dream." And my mom was like, because she had to deactivate her mom instincts. And then she eventually crawled back to her bed. And so, what do you guys think about that?
Wow. I thought it was very interesting how you talked about like the jump cuts, like you were inside of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very. I think that's a common thing, where people have like they're most of the time omniscient in their dreams, so they always know what's happening, but they're not always experiencing it.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's pretty interesting. But about your nightmare, do you want me to try to interpret it, or do you just
yeah, take a crack at it?
Okay. Maybe first grade Daquan was feeling that he didn't he didn't have control
Mhm.
over his life, and he really needed someone to help him. Um, to help him, he needed like a godlike presence to fall out of the sky and assist him in his troubles.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure, but
Hey, that's valid. Listen, you want to take a shot?
I think I'm good about interpreting your dreams because I don't know you. I mean, I know you, but like you in general compared to other people at the school.
The School of
I feel
Science
like-
and Math.
Yes, the school of science and math. I feel like you're one of the hardest people to interpret because you're just so unique and interesting in a good way, of course. But like you're just so different compared to the people here, and so when I feel like I understand you, I really don't. And so when it comes to interpreting your dream, let alone your first grade dream, and I didn't know you, I don't think I can interpret it. But I do find it interesting, like with my nightmares that I shared with my parents dying and with your nightmare, for you to still remember it to this day, 10 years later, I still feel like in that case, dreams do mean something because I feel like if something's insignificant in your life, you wouldn't bother, not even bother, but wouldn't just remember it.
Yeah, it
And for
wouldn't
you to
stick
remember
out as
that,
much.
yeah, and for you to remember that, especially when you say that you don't have dreams now, or you don't recall them if you do, I feel like that dream is significant.
Okay. Yeah, that was about the conclusion that I was expecting. And that also leads us to the conclusion of the podcast. As always, I'm your host, DP from the QT. Thank you so much for having me. You guys were great.
Thanks, likewise.
I'll catch you all next